Starting from scratch, step by step, we are going to build a complete daily cash flow Excel template with dynamic summary cards at the top, showing total income, total expenses, and current balance. You'll be able to choose the transaction type, income or expense, update the status as open or OK, and follow a running balance row by row to track how your cash flow changes over time. And the best part is that everything updates automatically. So if you change any value and press enter, the summary cards instantly refresh. You can add new income or expense entries, and the template remains fully dynamic and interactive. And this daily cash flow template in Excel can be used both for personal day-to-day financial control or by small and medium-sized business that need a practical way to monitor cash in and cash out. So let's go step by step, build this template in Excel. Now, before we begin building our cash flow spreadsheet with daily entries, I'm going to click the first row in Excel so I can select the whole row and create a header. Then on the Home tab, I'll choose a fill color and I'm going to use a light blue, let's say. Now I click the first cell, A1, and type the title of my spreadsheet, something like Daily Cash Flow. So Daily Cash Flow, that's it. And hit enter. Then I'll increase the font size a little, change the font color to a darker blue, and make it bold. On the second row, I can also change the fill color, and this time I can use a light yellow. Then between rows 2 and 3, I can click, hold, and drag upward to make the second row very thin. That's just a layout suggestion, okay? So you can do that too. However, if you want to use a different layout, a different color, go right ahead. And let's also rename the worksheet tab at the bottom. I will right click, choose rename and type cash flow, just so the sheet name is saved properly. Now we can start entering the important information. And I want to leave a few blank rows here so the header has some breathing room and it will be easier to build those cards later to show the total income and total expenses. Starting on row 8, let's say, I'm going to enter a very important field, which is the date. After date, I need to specify the type, whether it's income or expenses. So type, this is the next column I'm gonna use. I'll click the cell underneath type and I'll go to data and then data validation. Why I'm using this tool? Because I want to create a drop-down list with two options here in Excel, income or expenses. So here under settings, I will change allow for any value to list. So instead of allow any value, I'm gonna use list. And then I will type my two options. Either it will be income, comma, or expense. That's it. And if you have, let's say, a third option, all you need to do is add another comma, then the third option, then another comma, another option, and so on, so on. Click OK. Great. Now we created a drop-down list in Excel. And between columns B and C, I'll click, hold, and drag to the right so I can widen the column a little. And I will do the same for column A. Now, let's say on January 1st of 2027, I had an income, something that came in. And the nice thing is that you can also make this type cell change color automatically. So for example, maybe you want expenses in red and income in green. You can absolutely do that. Just select the type cells, then go to Home, Conditional Formatting, highlight cells rules, equal to. Everything equal to income can be formatted green. Then for expenses, let me go back to conditional formatting, highlight cells rules, equal to, type expenses, and choose red. And one important detail here, make sure you type the word exactly the same way you use it in your drop-down list, because it has to match exactly. Now I can change between income and expense, and the color also updates automatically. So now we have the date and the type. And another important field is the description. So I know what this income or expense actually represents. I'll widen the column a little too. So let's say the first income was salary. Great. And of course, it's very important to know the amount of the income or expense. So here I'll add a column, call it amount. And let's say the salary was 2,000. That's it. Hit enter. And it's also very important to format the number as currency. So I click the number, go to the Home tab and choose currency. And I also widen the column a little more. And basically with just these pieces of information, I could already build a very simple, however, very useful spreadsheet to track everything that comes in and everything that goes out, along with the description and the amount. But I'm going to keep adding a few more things that may be very useful for you, like status. And let's say, what does that mean, the status? It just helps you know whether the transaction already happened or is still open. And to do that, I'm going to create another drop-down list here. I'll click the status cell, go to data, then data validation, and I'll make a list with open and OK. Simple as that. Hit enter or click OK. And now if something is still open, I may want it to be highlighted in yellow. So I go to Home tab, conditional formatting, highlight cells rules, equal to, and then open. I'll use yellow. Great. And if it's okay, I can use the standard green that Excel already provides. So let me go back to Home tab, conditional formatting, equals to, and okay, it's gonna be green. Perfect. That way I can quickly see which items are still open and which ones are already done. And just to finish the table nicely, sometimes it's useful to have one extra column where you can type notes or observations about something. So I'll widen the column quite a bit. And finally, I want a running balance column. What is that? It means I can see my balance here, then here, and so on. So in other words, row by row, the balance keeps updating for me. So I can see actually the current balance row by row. And how can we calculate that? Very simple. Every time I have income, it adds to the balance. Every time I have an expense, it subtracts from the balance. So yes, we need to configure that logic. So let's first select the rows we created. And you can center the alignment to keep everything more organized. Then go to insert and turn this into a table. This is very important in Excel because tables gives you several benefits. But before I tell you the benefits, make sure, yes, to tell Excel your table has headers. And let's click OK. That's it. And one huge benefit to have a table in Excel is that every time you add new row information, let's say January 2nd of 2027, hit enter, Excel automatically creates a new row for you. Then you can choose whether it's income or expense, type the description, add the amount, and set the status as OK or open. Now, let's say this transaction is OK. Great. Let's widen the column just a bit more. Now, how can we calculate the running balance while taking income and expenses into account? To calculate the running balance, I'm going to use something very simple. Equals if. It's an Excel formula. So double click it to select. And why I'm using this formula? Because this isn't just a simple addition. Why not? Because income is positive and expense is negative. So Excel needs to understand that. And I need to tell Excel that when it's income, it should add the value. And when it's expense, it should subtract it. And that's exactly why I'm using if. And within this if formula, the first thing we need to do is select the type cell. And every time the type cell is equals to open quotations, income, close quotations, comma, I want Excel to sum the previous value to the current amount. So I'm gonna use here the sum formula. Yes, we are using a formula within another formula, and it's very important to avoid errors when we are doing this type of calculation, let's say running balance. Sum formula, double click to select, and it's very important to check if it's opened the parentheses, and I'm gonna add the previous value, that is cell G8, comma, to the current amount, close parentheses, comma. Now we need to use the sum formula again. So sum, double click it, make sure it opened the parentheses. Now we need to do something different. It's gonna be cell G8, that is the previous value, comma, minus, so make sure you use the minus sign and select the amount, close parentheses and close parentheses again. And why we use here 2 times the sum formula? Because the first sum formula is the condition if it's true. Every time the type is equal to income, so we are going to use the previous balance and add to the current amount. However, if the type is not income, it's gonna be expense. And when we have a expense in Excel, we need to use the previous value minus the current amount. That's it. Press enter. The nice thing is that Excel is smart enough to automatically fill the formula down the table. And if your Excel doesn't do that, just click the formula cell, grab the fill handle in the corner and drag it down. That's it. Perfect. Then you can format the balance column as currency from the home tab. And let's say 2000 coming in. So the balance is 2000. Then let's say 123.45 went out. So the balance becomes 1,876 and 55 cents. It updates automatically, but we are not done yet. Let's make one more improvement so we can really finish the template nicely. And what I want to do now is create those little cards at the top so we can see the total income, total expenses, and the final balance. So I go to insert, shapes, and choose a rectangle. I'll draw it here. I'll adjust the layout later. But for the cards to work properly, I'll pull the value for income, expenses, and balance. It's important that we also build formula somewhere in the sheet. You can place them anywhere, but I usually recommend putting them in a hidden area off to the side. For example, right here, just underneath the rectangle. So you not see the calculation. So let's calculate income, expenses, and balance. Balance is the easiest one. So let's start with the balance equals income minus expenses. Then we can hit enter. Now let's calculate total income. I'm gonna use here equals sum ifs. I can double click the formula to select it, and the first argument is the criteria range. It will be the type column. I can select the whole column, including the header if I want, then type comma. Now Excel asks for the criteria, and in quotations mark, I type income within quotations, okay? It's very important. Then another comma, and now I need the sum range, which is in the amount column. So I select the whole amount column and press enter. And that gives me the total income. If I add another income entry, let's test it. I'll type overtime pay here, and the amount will be 51.23. Enter. And great. I'll set the status to OK. And look at the running balance. It updates automatically. And the income total at the top updates too. So now let's calculate expenses. It's much easier to copy the formula we already made and drag it down one row. Then instead of income, I just change the criteria to expense and hit enter. Now I have both totals correctly. And if you want, you can select those total sales and format them as currency too. Now we can finish the cards themselves, and I want this first card to show income. So I'll click the shape, go up to the formula bar, type equals, and click the income total cell I created. Hit enter, and great, it's already showing the value. And the nice part is that if the underlying total changes, the value inside the card updates automatically too. That makes it very dynamic and useful. Now I will take the card I created, and using Ctrl C and Ctrl V, I will copy and paste it so I end up with 3 cards. Then I can adjust the layout a little better. The card on the left will show income, so it can be green. And the second one will show expenses, so it can be red. And the third one will show the balance, so it can be a lighter blue. The first card font can be made much larger, centered, and recolored it too. So maybe a darker green, so it matches with what we are building here. And now just to help identify each card clearly, we can add a small header shape above each one. So I'll go to Insert, Shapes, pick a rectangle, and draw it more or less on top of the first card. Then you can use the arrow keys on the keyboard to position it better if you want. And inside the little box, I'll type income. Then I will select the text, center it, choose a different font, keep the text white, and set the background to a dark green. I'll also increase the font size to a little bigger, and look how nice that little box looks. And I'm going to repeat the same process for expenses and balance. Done. I finished adjusting the cards, and that's it for today. This is how we can build a really simple daily cash flow spreadsheet in Excel in a dynamic and practical way. As you keep entering values, the cards, the balance, and the total keep updating automatically for you. I hope this video helped you a lot, and if you have any questions or any suggestions for future videos, leave them in the comments, because there is a new video every single day. So I see you there.